When you join ASUG, you'll never face an SAP challenge alone again. We connect our members to exclusive educational opportunities and a community of like-minded peers, so you can get the most value from your SAP investment. Get smart fast and learn from the best. Stay on the leading edge of SAP practices and get access to the latest research, insights, and unbiased editorial and interviews from industry experts and your peers. Expand your network. ASUG makes up the biggest, most diverse, and most engaged SAP user group in the world. Any question or challenge you have, there's someone who's seen it before. Connect with a network of 130,000 plus SAP savvy professionals to solve complex business challenges, work smarter, and expand your SAP skills. Get set to lead. Improve your SAP expertise by collaborating with peers to solve business challenges and find innovative solutions. With 38 regional chapters, you and your teams can connect and meet with other SAP professionals and take advantage of dozens of speaking and leadership opportunities throughout the year where you can share your ideas. Become a leader in the ASUG community by leading a local chapter, joining our executive exchange, and participating in one of our 13 and growing ASUG Alliance groups, or make connections and learn at ASUG events. Keep learning, connecting, and growing with ASUG.
Hi everyone, good morning, and thanks for joining us today. Welcome to Improve Performance and Cut Costs with Content Management and Archiving. I'm Heather Lima. I'm a content producer here at ASUG. Today's webcast will be recorded, and you'll receive a post-event email with a link to the on-demand recording along with a link to a survey. Please take a moment to fill out that 2-question survey after the webcast, or you can fill it out now by clicking the little icon on the screen below. If you have any questions throughout the webcast, please go ahead and enter them in that Q&A box. We'll be answering questions at the end of the webcast, and anything that we don't get to today while we're on, we will answer offline. So before we begin, please take a moment to answer this nice poll that we have here. You can go ahead and click that screen. It is interactive, and we will show you the results here in a moment. Okay, so now I'll hand off the webcast to Shelley Mann with Zia Consulting. Shelley, take it away.
Thank you. Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us and for your valuable input in our first poll. My name is Shelley Mann, VP of Marketing with Zia Consulting. We're really excited to have you join our webinar on how to improve performance and cut cost with our content management and archiving software appliance. In this webinar, Jeremy White from Zia Consulting and Jim McGuire from Rocket Software will share strategies for leveraging key capabilities of the archiving appliance to reduce database size, improve overall performance, and continuously evolve and align with your business objectives. You will also see a live demo of the software appliance. We're going to be conducting a couple other polls throughout the webinar, and we really appreciate your input. This will give our speakers an opportunity to adjust their track talk based on your input. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Jeremy.
Thank you, Shelley. And what I'm going to do is just go ahead and advance here, and we're going to take a quick look at the results. Okay, that's really interesting. We're kind of split amongst the three, so that we will take that into consideration as we go through the webinar today and kind of adjust and make sure that we're addressing all of these approaches. So again, my name is Jeremy White. Thank you, Shelley, for that introduction. And I also just want to take a second and thank Heather and all the amazing folks at ASUG. You guys do an awesome job, and we're really excited to be part of the ASUG community. And we're really looking forward to our webinar today. This is the first one that we're doing with ASUG, so we're really excited about it and looking forward to your feedback on the polls and also getting to know you folks a little more throughout our journey here. So a couple of things that I thought I'd do, and let me just start by saying, yeah, I've kind of been around SAP for, feels weird to say, but just over 25 years now. I kind of earned my stripes on a R2 implementation that started back in the mid-90s with a company called ConAgra Foods, which is based in Omaha, Nebraska. And I think at that time, it might have been the first or the largest ERP implementation in the United States. It was just a beast of an implementation. I think overall it took about 10 years. And one of the things that we realized kind of very quickly during those days, especially because of the small amount of memory that you could actually, or the small amount of memory that you had to operate the system, is that archiving was incredibly critical right out of the gate before even going live. So so I kind of earned my stripes on trying to solve some of those problems early in my day, and then also the problem that comes with too much data in SAP, which is the performance issues. And so today we're really going to focus on archive strategies, and also fixing the issues related to performance, but also with HANA, as you know, the cost kind of substantially increases with the in-memory, with the way that it's priced within memory. So a lot of these benefits associated with archiving are not just performance, but it's also cost related, and then also the ability to give your users access to content in places that they already work, and also maybe some of your partners could be shipping partners or business partners, and providing them with the access that they need in a place that makes sense for them. So I know that everyone here is probably really excited to see the live demonstration. So there's one of the problems that I have is I like to talk about this stuff, and I have a hard time keeping it brief. So I'm going to do my best to kind of plow through this information really quickly in the beginning here, so that we can get this over to Jim, where we can go through a live demonstration. But before we do that, I just wanted to focus a little bit on what is the solution that we have. What is this archiving appliance? What are the problems that we solve by leveraging the archiving appliance? Talk a little bit about growth and how we solve that problem, and then some of the differentiators with our archiving approach and appliance versus some of the others that are on the market. And then we'll jump straight into the demonstration and the use cases. I think Jim's got 5 or 6 demonstration use cases that he's going to go over. But one of the things that I like to say, just kind of right out of the gate here, is we know that there's way too much content to cover in an hour. So this is almost going to be like a little teaser. And Jim and I and the rest of the team, the Zia team and the Rocket team, we are on standby to have individual follow-up meetings and conversations about the nuances associated with your environment and the challenges that you face and what you would like to do with archiving. So I'm going to just kind of go straight into one more poll here. And this is, again, as Shelley said, it's just to help kind of guide our conversations throughout the next 50 minutes or so. So just kind of curious what you're most interested in learning about today. So all of these items are definitely going to be covered in our agenda today. But as Shelley said, we can kind of focus a little bit more time on these areas if there's something that makes sense or that you're specifically interested in covering today. So the topics that we have planned in the agenda are, typical ones that you would think that are associated with archiving. One is reducing costs. Are you primarily interested in improving performance? Some customers are really concerned about using an archiving solution where they lose data ownership. So that might be something that you're specifically interested in. User experience, how do you interact with content once it's archived? Do you still have access to it in SAP versus external applications? And then also accessing content externally from SAP. So this might mean bill of lading, shipping documents, packing slips, invoices, etc. So these are all topics, like I said, that we're going to cover today, but just curious what you're most interested in seeing. And I think I yammered on there for a good 45 seconds. So let's see what the results say here. Okay, great. Reducing costs, improving performance. So I'm not sure if that's because we led you to that answer based on the name of this webinar, but we are definitely planning on covering those topics in pretty good detail today. So the problems we solve, not surprisingly, are really, and that's not surprising. What we see are the two top things that we're, consistently being approached by our prospects and customers are those two items. So how do we stabilize the cost in S/4HANA, and also, how are we going to improve performance? The way that we do that is by developing an archiving strategy that keeps the tables in, under control and stops that exponential growth. But, part of what we know that you need to do is have access to that content, either through connected SAP applications or externally, or both. So we're going to cover how you do that today. The other thing that we notice, and this is kind of this bullet down here on the bottom left, the reduced costs, what we've seen is that there are other archiving vendors out there that have a very expensive approach to archiving data. So yes, they get the data out. Yes, they can stop and help improve performance in SAP and stop the SAP growth. But the problem is that those archiving solutions in and of themselves are really expensive. And so we've taken a totally different approach to how we solve this, and we'll talk about that as well, how we can stop the cost or the SAP S/4HANA data growth, stop that expense, but also how we can just level out this cost moving forward for you and your organization. One of the things, and that's a little bit different, I think, than some of the other vendors out there, is that we approach this from an ROI perspective. We work with you preemptively and non-billable to take a look at your data, take a look at your DB02 report. We also have a couple of custom reports that helps us quantify the data in your SAP environment. We can also get special insights into where the likely performance issues are based on that analysis. And we produce a custom ROI and pricing calculator specifically for you, your organization, and the nuances that you face based on your implementation. So these are sort of just the probably, and these aligned with the poll that we just took, probably the most important and common things that we see. Some of the other items that we see in terms of what customers are looking to do, and these are more kind of secondary, but can sometimes be equally important. And that's, improving backup and recovery times by having a robust archive strategy. That means being able to make sure that SAP business operations are not impacted when you have terabytes of data that you're trying to restore in the event of some sort of outage. So we can help talk about that, streamline that as well. Enabling external access, the things around governance, records management. We have a couple of different approaches. We have a full records management module, but we can also leverage ILM. We are an SAP certified solution for both ILM as well as Archive Link, and for ECC as well as S/4HANA. And one of the other things is future-proof for growth. So this is a fully managed service. It's a fully managed appliance. So just taking all that kind of administrative burden away so that you can focus on your business at hand there. So let's just take a quick look. This is what SAP growth looks like without having a content archive and management strategy. And what you'll see as this builds out here is, and SAP typically identify, and ASUG and various consultancies talk about how the typical growth with SAP is somewhere between 15 and 20% a year. It's actually happening exponentially. So this should really be a hockey stick chart, but it didn't look as good. So that's the reality. I wanted a better looking chart. So, but what you would really see is that this is, typically exponential growth. And the problem that happens with that exponential growth is that you're constantly in a situation where you need to take new tranches of memory in S/4HANA in order to service that content. The other problem is that the performance starts to degrade. So as you end up with massive tables, let's say that you're looking at pricing tables in the SD module, these things can start spinning out of control, and the pricing tables can start becoming so large, or any of the ERP tables really. So one of the things that we want to do is solve that problem, stabilize and flatline that growth, and move the content out to an external to an external repository where we can manage those workloads offline. So let's take a look at what that looks like when we add a content and archive management solution and an archive strategy. So what happens is as the growth, as we go year over year and we're experiencing that 15 to 20% growth, what we're doing is moving through the archive strategy, moving that content into the repository. So the line that you see below, this teal line here, this is the content and archive management repository. And we're moving that content into that repository. And we'll talk about, whether or not that data is still connected. It is, spoiler alert, but we'll talk about that in more, detail in a few slides here. The main thing to realize here, and what you might notice is, well, why is it so insignificant, the amount of data that's going into the content archive management repository? That's because we can achieve 80 to 95% compression when we move the content into outside of SAP. What we also do, and this could be on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, it depends on the nuance of your specific landscape and implementation. What we also do is reorganize your SAP tables to free up that memory. So it's one thing to move the content, but we also need to free up the resources so that SAP workloads can still benefit from all of that memory. So I'm just going to keep jumping ahead here. So again, what you'll see here with content management in place is that we fully stabilized the cost. So no new tranches required from SAP. We've also stabilized the performance. So we've moved content out that is not necessary to be serviced by SAP resources. And what we've done is also stabilize the cost here for the content and archive management solution as well. The reason that you'll see that cost is flatlined but barely increasing is really just based on the amount of storage that we need to service that content. So, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more depth here in just a couple of slides. So let's go through solution differentiators real quickly. No price changes based on any of these items. So this is different than what is industry standard. In most instances, you'll see that based on the number of users, the volume of data that's growing or being serviced in the archive appliance over time that the vendor will charge. They might charge based on number of transactions. They might charge based on ingress, egress. There could be some nickel and diming going on if you need access through an API. So all of these things based on customer feedback, we just eliminated it. We come up with a price, we come up with a solution. It does not matter how many users you have, how much your data grows over time, number of transactions, any of this. The price is maintained and it's stabilized. So as I said, no ingress, egress fees. The other thing is the data is completely yours. You own all of this data. It sits in your cloud tenant, which we'll talk about here in a second. The other thing is fully managed service. This is not something that you have to come back and forth to get upgrades, patches. This is a fully managed service and appliance. And that we also have advanced features that can allow you to benefit and leverage your data in new ways, and also using the appliance work to perform those workloads instead of SAP. So what is this? What we've done is basically, this is and by the way, what's kind of old is new again. And so what I mean by that is this is a 25-year-old proven technology from Rocket Software. What we have done is repackaged it into a modernized solution and into a software appliance that can be deployed in any of the clouds. So that's Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, etc. So what's inside of it is all of the product SKUs that you would expect. So those are down here on the bottom right. So content management, governance, indexing, etc. Everything that you can imagine, we have included it so that there, once again, no kind of nickel and diming on add-ons or when you want to add new features or functions. So I'm just going to keep kind of going through here pretty quickly. As I said, we're happy to schedule some time after this webinar with you individually to go into more in-depth discussions on what some of these things are. What I would like to do now, though, is bring in Jim McGuire. Jim is one of my comrades. He's been in this industry for, I think, maybe a little bit longer than me, even, and has quite a few experiences. So, Jim, maybe if you could just take a couple of minutes and introduce yourself.
Certainly, Jeremy. Thank you for the intro. So I'm the product management director at Rocket Software for our content solutions. And my first experience is very much akin to yours. We're with R2 back in the 1990s. On the receiving end of that implementation, and then when they told us we were going to R3, I volunteered as the SD team lead. So one of the things we found out about a year or two after go live was that response times for certain queries was degrading, and those backups you were talking about at night were running into prime time. We couldn't get it all done in the window we had. So I actually went looking for a solution, and that's how I discovered the SAP Content Archiving Appliance. I loved it when I first found it because it took an approach a little bit different than others when it comes to handling the SAP content. And we'll take a deeper dive into that as we go. Excellent. So let's go. Yes. So Mythbusters.
Yeah, so what we thought we'd do is just get a couple of questions out of the way that we typically hear as we kind of interact with a lot of different prospects and customers. One of them that's most common is that, I can't move my attachment content because it's attached to active transactions. So with our solution, that's, a myth. We're using the standard integrations. From a user's perspective, they will notice no difference. They, wherever the attachments were, we have a process and a utility where we can migrate all of the historical content that's sitting in the various SAP cluster tables, move them to the appliance. And what that does right out of the gate, very fast, quick win, is it frees up SAP resources because SAP is simply asking the external database for the content versus trying to organize it internally. Let's see, next one, Jim, why don't you take that one?
Okay, I can't archive because I need access to the data within SAP. Well, in general, SAP supports reaccess from the archive for a number of transactions, right? And they also have the Archive Development Kit and the Archive Information System that allows you to create custom objects for archiving data. You'll see as we go, there's no negative to archiving transactions and master data once those transactions are business complete.
Excellent. Next one, I've been told that it's better to implement an archiving strategy after I migrate to S/4HANA. So this one is a little bit of a preference, but what we learned over the past couple of Sapphires is that this is a myth. And almost all of the customer success stories that we heard at Sapphire is that they realized they wish they would have embarked on their archive strategy prior to going to S/4HANA. There's several reasons. Obviously, keeping a smaller database, migrating a smaller database, but also it's the cost, and then just the confusion of the content. So the general best practice that we've learned and that we've seen coming from customer insights is get your house in order before going to S/4HANA. Jim, why don't you take the next one?
I can't archive the data because there's other integrated applications such as BW leveraging my data. Well, that's one of the things our customers do is they archive SAP data, BW data. Actually, we also can interrogate that data to make sure it's correct between those different environments. So there's no negative to moving data to BW for analysis.
Excellent. So Jim, I went through some of the technical benefits earlier. I think I'll turn this over to you, and if you want to talk a little bit about this, and then I think
Sure.
We're probably jumping into the demonstration after this.
Very good. So that first bullet point, simplify user access, is one of the things I really liked when I first discovered this solution. In general, folks in SAP, they can only get to information as part of those transactions and master data records. But having access to the information outside of SAP for business continuity is something that this solution brings to bear. And then the ability to decommission those legacy systems, that's another thing. We had 127 different legacy systems. And it allows you to comfortably index and archive those legacy systems and still have access to that information Using the same tool, you're looking to find the content related to your current SAP instances. And then the compliance with data retention, that's also been one of the claims to fame for the solution, is the ability to migrate to less costly storage media as it ages, and then managing those end-of-life scenarios. The notion of automated tests and processing is something we definitely support. The most common scenario is the automated processing of vendor invoices, but there's many scenarios like proof of deliveries, and including those as part of the workflow. And then this notion that I can leverage one solution to give me a single pane of glass to content that's coming from ECC, HANA, legacy systems, all with one solution. And then last but not least is optimizing the performance of HANA and minimizing my storage utilization. So before we jump into the live demo, one more poll question. What approach will you or did you take with your S/4HANA implementation journey? Brownfield, greenfield, or bluefield? Please take a moment and engage with the poll.
Yeah, and this is always an interesting one. I feel like I've been on probably 2 or 3 other ASUG webinars where this question is asked. And it seems like kind of, half and half on brownfield, greenfield, but the bluefield thing keeps popping up as well. So I'm curious to see the results here on our ASUG based on the audience or on our webinar based on the audience that we have.
So I think that should be about enough time. Let's take a look. Okay.
Excellent.
A lot of greenfield. Very good. All right, so we're going to get to the live demo now. Hopefully my systems are behaving. We're going to start off with looking at those attachments and the viewing client capabilities. Then we'll take a look at print list management, reaccess and data mining, data archiving reaccess within SAP, automated vendor invoice processing, external access and search forms, and then content auditing and insights. So before I jump into the live demo, I do want to touch that first use case. So as we mentioned, right out of the gate, we can move all the existing attachments to the archive appliance, and still, from the user's perspective, they see no difference. They go to the services for object, look at the attachment list, click on it, launches our viewing client, they see the documents. We can also link any document to an existing transaction or master data record, either individually or in bulk. I'll do it individually. And then you can view that content directly within SAP or using our viewing client, and we'll take a closer look at that. So let me share my screen.
Yeah, and while Jim's sharing his screen, I just wanted to point out that one of the things and one of the benefits of leveraging this solution is you can certainly use the typical viewer from SAP, but we also have an enhanced viewer, and Jim's going to walk us through that here in just a second. It gives you a lot of extra features and capabilities. It's not a requirement, but it's certainly something that's part of the stack and part of the appliance that we're talking about today.
Very good. That's very true, Jeremy. So here I am in Fiori, and I'm going to go look at a document. We'll do this one at the top, 1.3. Let's take a look at it from 2023. Continue. If I go up here to services for object, attachment list, you'll notice there's nothing attached. I'm going to add a new one. It's going to ask me what type of attachment. It wants to know what file I want to use, so I'm going to tell it which one I want. I'm going to just take a quick look at that document. You notice as I click on it, it launches the document. and then I'm going to continue. So now that document is now associated with this transaction, and whenever I go to look at it, if I double click, it's going to launch our viewing client to take a look at that document. I also, as a user, can access that same document outside of SAP. And one of the cool things we do here is if we look at the metadata for that document, we've passed the metadata from SAP to Mobius. So those indexes are persistent. And if I do searching, I can search based on those parameters that when I archived it, it didn't know, right? The user didn't have to tell it anything. All they had to do is say, I want to attach, tell it what type of document it was. And then behind the scenes, Mobius is passing that data behind the scenes to Mobius for processing. So that's one thing. Another way is we have a capability we call VDR link. I know it's not much of a marketing term, but what it does is it allows you to link any document. In this case, I've set it up to archive a purchase order document and link it to a purchase order. So I'm just going to run this batch file, and all that batch file does is say, hey, take this document and link it to the transaction in SAP. So if I go back over to Fiori, go back to my home screen, display purchase order, and I go take a look at the purchase order I used, which was this one. And we go for services for object to the attachment list. You'll notice there's a purchase order that was just linked to that transaction. So you noticed I've done this a few times before. So those are two ways that you can link documents, either as individuals or in bulk. And then actually in the viewing client, let's take a little closer look while we're here. So I did show you that I can see the metadata. I can also, it's very responsive. I can favorite documents and put them in the appropriate place as desired. I can collect a variety of documents, and anything I collect will automatically go into this collection. And then I can take action, and I can print, download. If I'm authorized, I can manage redaction, presentations. I can share this document. I can share it. I can allow download. I can have a link that expires in a number of minutes. I can allow them to edit annotations as desired. So there's a bunch of things I can do when sharing content. And then also there's the metadata as we just looked at. And audit. And I can actually pop this out if I want to see it bigger. Okay, so that's the first demo segment. Let me stop sharing for a second. Come back over to, and let's go to the next slide. So next we're going to take a look. One of the things we suggest to anyone who's doing an archiving project for SAP, before you archive the data, you know which reports are important to you. Chances are you've created custom queries for certain reports that you use in your day-to-day operations. Before you archive the data, it's best practice to archive those critically important reports and output documents, and then make them accessible to folks without having to be inside of SAP. So let's actually, let me share my screen again. And come over to the appliance. So here I am in HANA, and I'm going to navigate to a report, the aged receivables report. And I'm going to run that report wide open. You'll notice I've got over 2,000 records here. It's a large report. And I want to index and archive this report. So all I need to do is go list, print, and then what you'll notice in SAP, every piece of output can be print only, archive only, and print and archive. If they're customer or vendor facing documents, you want to print and archive them. If it's, in this case, a report, I don't really need to print it out. I just want to have it accessible to users it's important to. So I need to indicate which is the archiving object type. In this case, it's a druck list, which is a print list. I need to put in, I can put in information purposes. I just put my own initials. And then in this case, it's print list archiving. And then I just have to tell it I need to do that immediately. So now I'm ready to archive this print list, and you'll notice at the bottom I get a message. The spool request was sent to SAP printer LP01. And now if I navigate to the archive link monitor, you'll notice I have something sitting in the archive queue. It's set to check it every 5 minutes, but I'm going to push it along. And then if I refresh, you'll notice that item has dropped off my queue. So now if we go and we go to that particular report, aged receivables, we'll notice we have a new copy of it. And it has many sections, right? Over 2,000 of them. But I can slim that list very quickly down to the area that I'm interested in seeing. And then I can view that segment of the report. And, I can find the information I care about in that report, right? If I just start typing, it's going to take me right to the section of the report that I care about. And again, I can do all those things related to content. I also have an instance of HANA where we've limited the access. So it's the same report we just ran. This is one of the unique capabilities of our archiving appliance is that in this case, this user only has access to the aged receivables report, and they only have access to a particular section of that report. So that's really good at doing what we call policy-based archiving, where we break reports into logical sections based on your business rules, and then limit the access based on the role of the individuals. So I take that huge report, I break it up into logical sections, and then I serve an entire global community without having to generate that report over and over again. So I also have the ability to mine data. So let me take a look at another report. Oh, actually, I'm not going to toggle back to it, Jeremy. I'll toggle back to that screenshot when I come back. Too much clicking to get back and forth. So let me look at it's a monthly sales report. And what you'll see here is I've got a couple of data extraction policies set up. And these were published by an administrator, and I can customize them as I desire. And I'm interacting with the report. Let's take the one we just did. Or I guess I did this one earlier. And what you'll notice is that I can mine the data from this. So in this case, this report, I have 10 results. And we're really good at extracting data from unstructured content. So all the fields on this report are available to me. All these functions, and there are quite a few functions, are available to me, as well as operators. so that I can create statements that help me extract the meaningful data for me. So in this case, I've limited it to the month-to-date variance more than 1,200 and the year-to-date variance more than 12,000. And I can edit those rules just so I can show you what they look like. I can show you the labels for those rules. I can clear the rules and suggest new ones. We actually use machine learning algorithms to take a best guess at how content should be indexed and data can be extracted. And then as desired, I can preview that data. I can export that data. I can export it to include hidden fields, to not zip if desired, and that can be exported as CSV text or XLS. So now I'm going to switch back because that was the data mining piece. Let me get out of the appliance, come back over here. So yeah, I kind of skipped ahead. So right out of the box, this is something we provide. Typically, other folks that offer solutions, if you want to have this type of data extraction capability, it's a per user charge, and it's included as part of what you deliver with this solution. So next, we're going to go into data archiving. It's not sexy, but you need to do it. And there are, SAP has developed capabilities that allow you to do it. So the archive administration, archive management, they provide a set of standard archiving objects that can be leveraged. You can also make copies of those standard objects and create your own custom objects using the archive development kit. And then you can actually create infrastructures so that if people want to re-access the data rather than reloading data, which is never advised, you can actually interrogate using those infrastructures. For me, it's not comfortable for the user because those infrastructures give you a view of the data that's not familiar. That's one thing. The other thing is users have to know what archiving object was used and what infrastructure they should select. The DRB, their document relationship browser, was a big step up from that, because all a user has to do is know what business area they're looking for, say sales and distribution, say they're looking for a sales order, and they don't have to know the archiving object and the information structures that are being used. So anyway, our solution works with all the standard SAP methodology. And let me go now into SAP and let's archive some data. Okay. So I'm actually going to go, there's more than one way to skin this cat. Let's go here to Fiori again. I've got a card for archive administration. And what you'll notice is there's a large number of archiving objects that SAP provides. There's more than 500. Okay, we're going to keep it simple and do an underlying. Oops, I'm in Dutch. I've got to change to English. If I document is the one we want, let me cancel this. Come back here. If I underscore document, there it is. And then you'll notice I've got a variant already set up. Let me just check it. Yes, I want to change that variant. Okay, it's got the one I want to do. Okay, so that's fine. I'll save it. Continue anyway. Yes. All right, so I've maintained the variant attributes. I need to tell it when I want to do this. I want to do it immediately. I have my out device, print only. That's all correct. And now I'm ready to archive some data. Actually, before I go and archive the data, forgive me, let's take a look at that transaction. Okay, I wanted to display the document for a couple of reasons. One, I wanted you to see that if I try to look at that document right now, it's still resident in the database. It came right back up. So let me get that out of the way. And let's execute that. It doesn't like it when I change the variant. Okay, so now it's archiving that data. What you'll notice, there's jobs. One is to write to an Exchange directory. And if I refresh this, it's all finished now. If we come back over to archiving appliance, we should see a new archiving data job. And there it is. So you can't access the data from here because it's really just a blob. It's a Rio file. But if I go back to that transaction, right, and I display it now, what we should see is down at the bottom, it's already archived. So you'll notice it's pulling the data from the archive appliance. The user doesn't see any difference, right? For them, it's exactly as it normally would have been. Okay. All right. So let me stop sharing. So that's data archiving. And I'll just be upfront. There are data dependencies. You have to archive the underlying financial and cost controlling transactions first before you can get to higher order transactions like sales orders, etc. Accounts payable processing automation is something we do for more than half of our SAP customers. It kind of goes in hand with archiving because it is an early archiving methodology. I've already done the scan capture and OCR. And the solution has already passed invoices that are PO based for matching to SAP, and we leverage SAP's matching routines. And for mismatched PO or non-PO based items, we process those via SAP workflow. And let me share my screen again. Come back over to my appliance. So I already ran the archive for these invoices, but let's go take a look at them. So here's a non-PO based one that needs processing. And to process it, all I have to do is click on it. It launches the viewing client so I can see that invoice. And I guess I opened it pretty big. That's okay. And then all I have to do is hit process. And then I can put in some text. I pick the appropriate general ledger account, which for me is going to be petty cash, and then validate that the amount is correct. And then post it. The new financial transaction was created. And if I refresh my screen, that item drops off. If I go and display that document, what you'll notice So I go to services for object. There's that vendor invoice, and I guess I had done something there. It is. So at this point, they can add attachments, or annotations, anything done either to the attached document in SAP is automatically reflected in the SAP Content Archiving Appliance. I go to that. We just did a non-PO invoice. There's the one we just processed. If I put on an annotation here, it would be reflected to the user in SAP. All right, so that's for a non-PO based one. For a PO based one, for me, the easiest way to get there is MIR6. And I know I'm almost out of time. This will be the last one. I've got a variant I've created for this. So these are ones where they were PO based. They were automatically passed by the SAP Content Archiving Appliance to SAP. We leveraged SAP's three-way matching routines, and automatically it will link the archived invoice to that transaction. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to stop sharing. I know I covered a lot of ground, and it's not all the ground I wanted to cover.
Yeah,
But,
no, that's okay. I think for these next ones, let's just cover them through the slideware. And then one of the things,
Sure.
so everyone knows, we have another webinar scheduled, and we'll talk about what the contents are. But yeah, if you just want to bounce through those other couple of use cases here, just in the slides versus the
Sure.
live demo, and then
Sure.
for all the folks on the phone, we're you know, as I said, we're on standby and happy to schedule individual meetings with you guys to go through these.
So our archiving appliance is also known for its governance. So the ability to audit activities of both users and administrators, both on the server side and the viewing client side, can all be audited. And that can be visualized using things like Apache Superset, Power BI, Click. It's really just a matter of configuring it, identifying the items you want to audit, and then you can visualize it however you want. And everything's logged as JSON. Within the application, the administrators can view the audit trail, and they can export it as CSV or XLS as desired for audits. The other side of audit, and I don't know if I have a slide for it, is access control. We can limit individual users or users groups access to certain functions, content, as well as UI governance, what they can actually see, the activities they can take. So that's
Great. Thank you so much, Jeremy and Jim. We want to move on to the very last slide that shows when our next webinar is. So if you could advance to the next slide, we can have that show if you're interested in attending another session and hearing even more about the archiving appliance. That would be great. We'd love to have you join us. This has been a really good webinar, fun demonstration, and I want to turn it over to Heather because we have a few questions that came in. And as she said, any questions that we don't get to today, we will get to them because we'll have access to those after the webinar.
Excellent.
Thank you. So we did get a few questions in, and the first one is, will existing archives be available after going to S/4HANA?
Yes, so we can take archives wherever they've been archived out of. So if they were an ECC and you've archived them onto storage devices or another archiving application, yes, we can move those in, connect those, and give them access. The other benefit is that it's federated. So even if you have a hybrid environment and the ECC environment is still running, we can use one environment to connect you to your S4 archives as well as your ECC archives.
And that just reminded me, I forgot to show search forms. So would have seen HANA and ECC content side by side. But anyway, good stuff.
Great. Thank you. So is Dart still required before archiving in your solution?
Well, in North America, most folks use Dart so they can create extracts for taxing authorities. So we fully support Dart. And in other countries, there are other reporting tools that are typically to provide to regulators, taxing authorities. We support all of it.
But just to be clear, Dart's not a requirement. It's just we support it if the organizations, if that's the way that the organization is reporting.
Yes, and whatever method they're using for reporting now, we fully support it. And that's, for me, the key.
That's fantastic. So we are currently using OpenText as an archiving solution. Does this tool work with OT?
Yeah, so a couple of points there. If you're using vendor invoice management, we can absolutely serve as the backend for the archives. If you are currently using OpenText for archiving data, we can certainly migrate the data into this archive appliance. So either scenario is absolutely fine.
Okay, great. So the next question is, we've been archiving data in ECC. We're doing a greenfield to S4HANA. Is there any way we can read ECC archived data from S4HANA?
Yep, so just that same scenario, we can use one SAP archive appliance that can connect to archives from ECC as well as S4HANA and provide federated access and a federated interface for that content.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. And can you use OpenText as a storage repository?
No, so we are the storage repository. What the scenario, the use case there would be is if you've already implemented OpenText as an example for vendor invoice management, we can be the storage repository for OpenText. Yeah.
Great.
Basically, we are a replacement for that.
Yeah, exactly.
Understood. Well, we managed to plow through those questions. Do you guys have any last words of wisdom for us?
Yeah, I think just a couple of things that I would say on the upcoming events. We're going to be in California. So for the folks who are going to be at Northern California around, I think in San Francisco on August 21st, our CEO, Mike Mann, is going to be there, as well as our regional director. So if you're there, we'd love to grab a drink, grab a coffee, etc. The other thing here is this item around the deep dive. This is where we are planning a webinar to go into all of the details of the interface itself, also our Microsoft O365 integration, and some of the roadmap items related to AI. And I think that's all I had. Shelley and Jim, any other parting thoughts here?
No, just I'm excited. I'm excited about the solution. I know it has great power, and I'm excited that Zia, our partner, is working with us in conjunction with ASA to bring it to the forefront. So exciting times.
Yes, thanks again for being here, and thank you so much, Heather, for hosting us.
Yes,
Oh,
thank
of
you, Heather.
course.
And thanks everyone for attending. Yeah.
I love the enthusiasm. And yes, if you are in Northern California, please check out the chapter event. They're free and they're so informative. You'll really love going. You can find the registration on the aseg.com website.
Yes.
And thank you everybody for joining us. Today was a great webcast. We look forward to seeing you again. And tomorrow, check out the link. You'll find the slides on there and you can watch this webcast on demand anytime. Thank you and have a great day.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
Heather.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.